Hi, people. Theresa from Garden Party Flower Farm, and can you believe it's 40 degrees outside? And here I am talking to you today about cool flowers. And I want to thank Open Food Network Canada and the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership for support to bring you this series of videos. So this is really geared to people who are kind of new to cool flowers. Maybe there'll be some tips or hints for people who are more established as growers. We're going to nip along kind of smartly here. I was going to bring all these flowers to show you, hold up the actual flowers, but it is 40 degrees outside and I could barely get harvested today, the things I have to get harvested for sale this week. And it's oppressive. So I did not pick your cool flowers. You've got pictures instead. So first, to introduce myself, I've been an organic farmer since 1985. I retired once and then I retired again. First time from vegetables, second time from academics. And I sold flowers primarily wholesale in the GTA. And I've also worked to launch the Open Food Network platform in Canada, soon to be called the Open Flower Network platform in Canada, we hope. And now I'm retiring from cut flowers, but not before I let you know a little bit about them. I'm going to have to clear my throat. sorry. So cool flowers, if you're new to this, are primarily annual flowers. In other words, they bloom and set seed and die all in 1 year. Okay. But if we plant these flowers early in the fall so that they can establish before it gets cold, basically the plants stay alive kind of in suspended animation almost below the snow in the cold. And as the weather warms and the day length lengthens, the snow melts and these flowers spring into action. So why would you bother with this? Well, it saves you a lot of time in the spring, especially if you get really unsettled weather in the spring, which I often get here in Southwest Ontario. They've got my back, right? Because I can't get the other things in the ground, but I know I've got the cool flowers coming along, and they kind of bloom in that gap post peonies, but before annuals. So I'm at June 23rd here, and they're at their peak. My peonies have just finished, and now these are coming in. Generally, they like a cool start or long days in April, and it's hard for us sometimes, depending on where you are in the country, to get out on the land early enough to seed them. At least I very seldom do. Often it's muddy, it's too cold to plant still. If you grow them under protection, we'll talk about the kinds of protection, you can hit Mother's Day with a number of them. So the goal then, establish the plants in time for winter survival to achieve spring harvests. This is not winter growing. Winter growing means the plants are actively growing during the winter, and that requires heat. This is overwintering of an annual. I mean, you overwinter perennials all the time. They're meant for that. But this is overwintering of an annual. When people talk about, oh, well, it bloomed for me, blah, blah, under my hoop house, you really need to think about what they mean, what kind of structure, because this language is loose and it means a lot of different things. They could be talking about a row cover, which just adds a little bit of insulation. Often a row cover is used as a second layer in a more substantive structure. They could be talking about a low tunnel, which again, you don't crawl under this, but it's hoops that go over the plants. And sometimes, depending on where you are, it can withstand the snow, but often not. So often you don't put that snow cover on till March or after your main snowfall has finished. They could be talking about a movable high tunnel. So a tunnel you walk under, and it can have lots of bells and whistles about doors. And because of its height, the room inside of it, it doesn't hold heat as badly as a low tunnel does. Remember, your enemy here is the heat the structure holds, not so much the protection from the cold, ironically. They can overheat very easily. They could be talking about a more permanent but unheated greenhouse. This is my structure. Steel way over 10 feet, good vents, and even with good vents, my greenhouse gets too hot for some cool flowers, and I'll tell you about that. Usually doors, and sometimes the sides roll up. That would be good if I had that, but I don't have that. Or we could be talking about a permanent greenhouse. So depending on the structure, different things are going to happen with these plants. The basic is 4 and 4. 4 weeks before the cold days and 4 weeks before the dark days. And that might be different dates for you. It might be the same date for you. So here's me, 4 weeks before the first hard frost. So you can look up your average first hard frost date. It'll be given as a range. For me, it's October 1st to 10th. And I count back 4 weeks. That means if I'm planting out in open field, I need to transplant the first or second week of September and not later. If I transplant later, they're not going to get big enough in time. If I transplant earlier, this is like what happened in fall 2024 for me. They bloom too soon, and then they're not so nice in the spring. They might bloom again, but they've kind of done their thing. They've set up their blooms, and they're not going to do well again. So in addition to that, you need to think about the dark days. When do the short days start for you? You want to make sure you're planted 4 days before your day length is less than 10 hours. When I was first trying to figure this out, I used ChatGPT. Don't do that because it gave me a completely wrong answer. Just say completely wrong. It told me my 10-hour day length was like July 3rd or something. I knew instantly it was wrong, and I wanted to correct the stupid AI, but you can't correct it. Just go look it up. You can go to the National Research Council site and put in your latitude and longitude and the date you're thinking of, and it will calculate for you. It will show you the number of hours of daylight. There's probably other sites too, but this is the one I use. So find the day when your day length is fewer than 10 hours. In other words, the dark days are starting. For me, it was November 2nd. And interestingly, I'll give you the link in a bit to the Johnny's does a whole bunch of overwintering trials. There's some excellent resources there for flower farmers. Their day is about November 2nd too. They're in Maine, so we're kind of similar. It wasn't exactly the same, but it's pretty close. So if I count back from that, that's October 5th. Okay, well, that's not going to be a problem because my frost, if I'm planting in the field, I have to have them way before that anyway, a month before that. So that's fine. But if I'm planting in my greenhouse where it doesn't freeze, I don't really even know what the first frost date would be in my greenhouse. Like some winters, I don't think I have one. So for sure, it's into January or February. But I can't plant that late, even though there's no frost, because the day length is too short. So this date, 4 weeks before the day length is less than 10 days, it's a hard way to say it. Think of it as the dark days, the short days. 4 weeks before that really speaks to you if you're planting in a structure. And so you have these two factors at play. It's important to keep records because this isn't an exact science. One of the farmers said to me, I don't mind mentioning, it was Janice Harris from Harris Flower Farm, who rightly so last fall, because we all had trouble last fall because fall went on and on and on for us with our cool flower plugs. We had trouble. They all bloomed too soon. As she said, it's not for the faint of heart. And it's true. We have variable weather in the fall and the spring, and those are the two growing times we're thinking about here. Keep records. Learn from other people in your zone. Be prepared for year-to-year variation. It will not happen the same every year. Keep a backup plan going. But it's amazing when it works. So what do you do over the winter? You get these things planted by the right date, and then what? Well, in open field, mulching is good. Mulching helps. I tend to use a lot of straw, but wood chips or even a floating row cover, a little bit of mulch makes a big difference. Even if it doesn't insulate that much, it stops the winds, and winds are very drying, right? They can cause desiccation in those plants really easily. Hope for reliable snow cover. That makes a big difference. The snow insulates from temperature and again from wind. If you don't have very much snow, you can use a low tunnel with a row cover and probably leave it there for the winter. Or if you've come up with a mechanics that works against snow load. That's great. If you have lots of snow like I do, I usually wait to March to put the covering on and put it on then, partly because if I'm putting a covering at all in open field, and often I don't, I hate the opening and closing and venting. It is, for me, a major pain in the butt. And you have to vent. It'll get way too hot under there. I know it seems weird because it's February, but boy, will it get hot under there. But you don't have to use any covering out in the field, and I don't generally. If you're planting in a high tunnel, a walk under tunnel or something, um, you can use a second layer of cover, especially if your tunnel is just a single poly. But if it's not very airtight, like there's a lot of wind getting through, wind will cool it down. Or if it freezes hard, like I say, mine doesn't, so I don't usually put a covering on anything. You can plant into a mulch or landscape fabric. I don't think it makes much of a difference, except for weed control is important. You want to water while they're getting established. Don't forget them in there. Um, but then you don't really want to water over the winter because they're not growing. So you got to take your cue from them. You've got to watch those plants. And usually for me, it's early February. I really see that they want to grow. I see new growth. That's when you have to give them water. And you want to be careful watering because you're still watering and it's very cold and it's easy for things to rot if you water in the cold. So be judicious. I'm very lucky because I have a buried water line to my greenhouse. If you don't have that, you've got to struggle with getting water, right? Because it'll still freeze at night probably. Um, so a hose that you run only during the day, or buckets that you don't let freeze, you wrap them with an insulator so they don't freeze. People come up with various things, and I'm sure you could ask. The other option is direct seeding. So here, I'm going to talk mostly about transplanting, but you can also just direct seed out there in the field. You can start them early too yourself, but you can also seed in the field. Sometimes people call this frost seeding. So this is a little bit different. It's not that the plant is getting big enough and then strong enough roots to stand the winter. It doesn't have roots. It's not even germinating yet. It's there, the seed is waiting, and when the moisture melts the snow in early spring, that seed will germinate. So a lot of these plants will reseed very easily. And that's a bonus for you, really. Okay, I'm going to tell you my top 10. But remember how I sell. I sell mostly for florist sales and floral shops, not so much designers anymore. And I do a little bit of pick your own. So that kind of colors, what I'm offering here. I also do some bulk buckets, and I find these are nice if they bloom with peonies for bulk buckets. Icelandic poppy, incredible cold flower. I have only recently discovered it. I always thought it was so impossible. Stronger and taller if it's planted under some kind of cover, but it's very hardy. No problem surviving open field. For me, I'm in zone 5A. Keep picking and keep getting more. Just showing you some dated pictures here. This first picture that's dated May 6th, you'll see is I'm comparing open field and unheated greenhouse. So open field, May 6th, it's starting to bloom pretty close to Mother's Day. If I had a hoop over that, it would have been. And April 10th, though, I had them for Easter in the unheated greenhouse, and they're glorious. And I'm at June 23rd, and they're just kind of slowing down, but that's because it's like 40 degrees out there. They don't like the heat. Next one, Campanula medium. Excellent for fall planting. This is where I was going to pick some to show you because it's stunning right now. It is at its peak at June 23rd. Excellent, quite hardy. Mine in open field actually, I think, does better than in the hoop house. The greenhouse makes it very tall, almost too tall, taller than I need. I don't need it that tall. And I find the heat slows it down, makes it, speeds it up, makes it bloom fast in the greenhouse. And then it sort of shot my load. But outside, generally it lasts a little bit longer. Now, I was down picking this morning and those last buds are open. Today was probably my last good pick. on the campanula just because of the heat. I think other years I would have it a little bit longer. But what's interesting is a very similar bloom date, whether it's in the tunnel or in the field. Um, and here's just showing you some pictures. They look awful out there in the field in the early spring. Look at how horrible that looks April 2nd. This is something you would post on the Facebook page and say, what should I do? Nothing. Of course, some leaves have died. It just went through winter. It's the roots you're worried about here, not the leaves. And if you see that new growth, which I see there on that April 2nd picture, you know everything is hunky-dory. Don't fret it. Uh, do you clean that up? Who has time to clean that up? Are you kidding? If you're going to go out and clean that up, you aren't a big enough flower farm. Like, plant something else. You, it's not on your priority to-do list. It's not a problem. It's going to grow past that, as you see in June 2nd. Look at it. You can't see that brown anymore, can you? Because there it is. If I took a picture today, all these buds are open right now, fully open. And if you look at the greenhouse too, March 22nd, marginally bigger, right? Like that's not that much bigger, but a little bit earlier on the harvest. Feverfew, excellent again for fall planting. I know it reseeds, but in my experience, a fall planted one will be taller and stronger stems, consistently stronger stems, so that your whole plant will offer multiple strong stems. I have a row of it right now that I just can't believe. It's just extraordinary. I have done them inside under cover. I don't see the advantage. They get very leggy. One advantage might be that it would be a nice complement to peonies and you would have it in time for peonies. Now, it could be because my greenhouse is very airtight, it heats too much. And in a field tunnel, maybe it doesn't heat that much and you can roll up your sides, and then in which case it probably does great outside or under cover that is vented. Foxgloves. They bloom ahead of field planted significantly if they're undercover. I have had Arctic Fox series and Dalmatian fall planted ready for Mother's Day in my unheated greenhouse. The thing about foxgloves that I love is you can kind of program them. In other words, get them to bloom at different times. If you plant, for example, an annual variety, so Dalmatian series, Camelot series, and plant those under cover, you're going to get them in May. And then if you also plant annual or perennial varieties, if you plant them in the fall out in open field, you're going to get June and probably another flush later. And then if you spring plant some, you're going to get them July, August, sometimes even September. So you can stage the availability of the foxgloves and get them almost all season by planting them in a sequence like that. Here again is another comparison. These are both open field. And again, you got this brown thing. It looks terrible. Don't worry about it because it just grows right up through that. So April 1st, you can see it's come through the winter just fine. And June 1st were my glorious blooms. Snapdragons are tricky. Lots of groups, and I'm not going to cover all the groups. For me, the ones I like the best are Madame Butterfly, Chantilly. Legend is nice too. But for me, they're iffy in open field. Sometimes, but not always. Better off leaving your established snapdragons, the ones you've harvested, in your open field and see if they make it because they're older plants. But planting young plants out there September 1st, for me, it hasn't worked so well. Hoop house better, and significantly so. So here, this is from a fall planting inside my unheated greenhouse, January 10th. You can see they're starting to show new growth. This would be my cue to start watering and paying attention to them. And then May 1st, so they easily make Mother's Day for me. And then this is out in the field. This is the earliest bloom I got from a spring planted, June 7th. So it's not too bad. Spring planting in open field gets me June 7. It's pretty soon. I have not successfully had Mother's Day from open field. So maybe people with tunnels could share that with you. Love Nigella, totally reseeds. It's so easy, you just leave it in the open field. I also planted it sometimes in the greenhouse. Again, it gets very tall and leggy, taller than I need and floppy, and then you need to net it. But you would get blooms for Mother's Day. So it depends how bad you want that bloom, really, for Mother's Day, I guess. Um, Here's a way I use Nigella, and you can do this with other plants too. This is a self-seeding technique, two different things. So on the left here, May 7th, this is a picture of Nigella that I'm using as a cover crop underneath peonies. And then below that, June 15th, that's the very same spot. Now it's blooming. Today, June 23rd, it's starting to put up its seed pods. So I just leave this reseed under my peonies. I honestly don't do anything. I leave it reseed. Don't pull them out. And then it looks a little messy, but I never have to weed these peonies because the nigella is all over the place, and I never use it all. But it's kind of a nice system. Something a little more controlled, if you want something a little more controlled. The pictures on the right are a little different spot. Here, I leave the nigella self-seed, but I have it planted, I have holes in landscape fabric. So when it self-seeds, most of the seeds fall on the landscape fabric and they don't germinate. The birds get them or whatever, they blow away. But some get into the holes and then they germinate in the holes. And so June 10 below there, you can see the same spot. Now it's in bud. Now today it's in full bloom. And there are a few weeds, but not very many because I'm never tilling here, right? You can make it a little bit better if late in the fall you put a little compost on top of each hole and then you're sure those seeds are going to germinate. But I don't do much to this and I get what looks like I planted nigella in holes, but really it planted itself. You can do this for bachelor buttons. You can do this for larkspurs. Um, Bupleurum will work like this. So all of these, Orlia, all of these fall things that self-seed so well, you can control the self-seeding. Larkspur, again, reseeds regularly, huge diversity. I like it because it's available as plugs. I don't know if it's worth doing undercover. I have, and in fact, I have some in the greenhouse now. But again, it gets too tall, taller than I want, and then I have to net. It's the last thing I want to do. Bupleurum, same kind of thing, and you can use that same system. I'm not sure there's an advantage to hoop planting for this. You want to take the easy wins, right? You want to save those hoop structures for things that really need it. And these things don't really need it, and it's marginally earlier in my experience, and taller than you need in my experience. Bupleurum gets plenty tall enough just reseeding in the field. Bachelor buttons I mentioned. I have way too many bachelor buttons. I just leave it go and then I mow it down. I think I have a picture right. So this is a picture June 7th in full bloom. So what happens then, I just leave it, I leave seeds form. I still harvested today, but I think I might make today the last day because it gets to the point where you have to pick it over too much and it's not worth it. So I leave the seeds form, and as they start to fall, I just cut it with a mower. I always get a little lecture from my husband for using the mower on it, but I do. It's not in landscape fabric, it's just in ground, and I mow it down. And yes, there's some weeds in there, but the patch is so thick it outcrowds any weeds. You can till lightly if you wish. I sometimes run a tiller very shallowly over it to make sure those seeds get in contact with the soil. I will do that this year because my patch has all gone to blues. Um, Blue must be the dominant color as it cross pollinates. I want more pinks, so if I put some pink seed down as well, I'll want to make sure it has good contact with the soil. I'll run a little tiller over it, and then I drive over it and just drive back and forth um, with the mower or the tractor to stamp it into the ground. And occasionally, I will remove an invasive weed if I see it, but not very often. And so it's just the self-seeding like meadow patch of bachelor buttons. Because I would never start them in plugs or something. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's a few things that are also great cool flowers. I'm just going to go through them. I don't grow them as much. It doesn't mean they're not great. It's just, I have enough with what I'm doing basically. Dianthus and carnations, the Sweet series, the Amazon series, of course, the Chabot series also, they all do well undercover. Um, you'll get them end of June. My outside ones are all blooming now. And I tend to winter them in open field. There's a huge selection, and I would say there's lots of room for you to experiment with dianthus and carnations with your situation because there's so many options. I like Dusty Miller. Not everybody does. In my unheated greenhouse, it overwinters easily and it becomes quite tall, even leggy. I have to kind of watch it. Uh, It's also nice in open field, though, I find. It's tall enough. You have to kind of pull. I pull out from the root to get the longest stem I can. And usually that's winter hardy for me too. It just takes a long time to come back from its little sprouts. Like mine is nowhere near the outside today, June 23rd, is nowhere near cutting. But the hoop house stuff would be if I had it in there, but I don't right now. Uh, Cineglossum, Chinese forget-me-not. I like the pink. I think it's a little heftier. The blue I find shatters, although it's beautiful down there. It self-seeds totally easily. I don't know if it's worth the space under a tunnel because it just does so well in open field. Agrostoma, I just love. Um, as you see, are buckets of it. Um, I succession plant, I start in plugs and I direct seed, but I don't fall plant them. I haven't had success fall planting. I don't think they quite make it. But I have planted it under cover in my greenhouse. Um, and it definitely hits Mother's Day, which is lovely to have. And you've got agrostoma with peonies, which is lovely to have. But I find again it gets leggy in there. And again, this might be just my greenhouse because it's getting too hot once we hit, middle of end of May in there. And maybe in a tunnel that has roll up sides, you're better off. Or just in open field. This would all have been open field. Um, and it's a favorite. Orlia, I like too. It will self seed. Um, when it self seeds, if you don't thin it out, you get a lot of this is a non thinned out patch of Orlia. If you thin it out, you get rewarded over and over again with taller, more amazing cuts. It sort of depends on what you're using it for and how much you want to work. I don't really sell it to designers, so I don't thin it up, and I just use it in my U pick. People pick it and so forth. Amy, same kind of thing, easily seeded fall or spring, um, or doing plugs. This year I happen to do plugs. I It blooms around the end of May in the hoop house, but again, I'm not sure that that is an advantage or worth that premium space. Sweet pea as well. If I plant in the fall, transplants in the hoop house, I get miraculous early sweet peas, mid-May, for example. It definitely survives in a tunnel. Longer stems and better blooms than the field ones. Um, and it will continue to produce through the heat, I find, most varieties, which sort of surprises me because you always think of sweet pea as a cool flower. Like, I mean, it needs cool weather, but it seems to do better in the heat of my greenhouse than some of those other things like Orlia and so forth. I'm not sure exactly why that is. And Bells of Ireland. I haven't grown it for a few years only because I started selling to some florists who, when I sold to designers, they liked all the little leaves on it, so it was fine. But the flower shops I sell to, they want the leaves pulled off. Okay, like it's not worth it doing that. It takes me way too long. So I just stopped growing it, but I do like it. Um, and it's another nice one for fall seeding or transplants. Okay, wrapping down some additional resources for you. I mentioned the Johnny seed. I think for us in Canada, this is a good source because it's Zone 5 US, which basically is Zone 5 Canada. Um, and there's some really, I give you some links. There's a webinar recording, there's slideshows. Just look under their flower resources and you'll be blown away by the detail that they've taken to overwinter cut flowers and to tell you about that. There's also, of course, the Gardener's Workshop, and Lisa Mason Ziegler, who coined the term cool flowers for her book. She has great resources, of course. You want to remember um, Lisa's in USDA Zone 8A. That's also Zone 8A in Canada. Most of us don't live in Zone 8A in Canada. Is there a Zone 8A? I think there's a Zone 7. I'm not sure if there is a Zone 8. So you've got to really do the math and know these things because you'll follow advice that isn't particularly useful, right? So Zone 8, I don't know. I would rather follow the Johnny's advice for Zone 5. Um, and their test would be equivalent to Zone 5 in Canada. Where do you find some of our resources? I just want to end with this because in case you haven't heard about Open Flower Network Project and seen where we're keeping resources, this is how to find them. And there is a newsletter there that you can subscribe to. Just go to the openfoodnetwork.ca page, look under About, and under projects, you'll see the Open Flower Network. We are reorganizing some things on the Facebook, so it could look a little, sorry, on our website. So it could look a little bit different, but it's there and you can subscribe to the newsletter. The Open Flower Network project is coming to a close this year. And we're hoping to do something further, and you'll hear more about that if we succeed in getting further funding. But I'm going to stop there. And I hope that even maybe you're somewhere where it's also, 40 degrees today and it's kind of nice to think about the fall and cool flowers. But if it's pleasant weather, I hope you have a lovely day. If it's hot where you are, please take care of yourself and stay hydrated and take a break. Flowers are not worth harming your health over. It really isn't. Take care. Let's talk again soon.